Hail and well met, travellers. Thank you for joining me on this beautiful spring morning. As you can see, it's daytime, and you may be wondering why we're not doing videos at night time. I thought you were the moonlight bard. What's with the sunlight? You're not the sunlight bard, are you? I feel like I've been lied to, maybe, and all those fears, they're justifiable, and hopefully I'll be able to clear them up. So what I'm going to try and do from now on is add a second layer to the channel, basically, and put all the fiction stuff, reading stories, poems, the performative stuff, we're going to be doing at night time. So we'll still be doing that under the light of the moon, in the witching hour, when the demons and fairies and sprites are running amok through the forest. And we're going to do all the educational stuff in the daytime. Educational stuff? What can you be talking about there? Well, I'll tell you. I'd like to share some of the poetic devices that great writers have used throughout history to really make their writing stand out and create great, lasting stories. And I thought one of the best things to begin on, especially doing poems and verse and things like that, is... what is meter? Meter is the rhythmic structure of a verse or lines of verse. So there's a difference between most writing. They tend to be written in either prose or verse, and it's a sort of structural difference. So prose is basically just how I'm speaking to you now. It's just one thing after the other. If you pick up any fiction or non-fiction book, it'll probably just be written in prose. It's how things are normally spoken. Whereas verse tends to have a more particular structure to it, and that'll be one that's grounded in certain patterns and metrical feet, so it uses meter throughout, of which there are a few different ones. There's iambic, spontaic, anapestic, dactylic, and a bunch of others. We're going to be breaking into the most commonly used one today, which is Iambic Pentameter, to be specific. And it was most famously used by probably the most famous writer ever, and that is William Shakespeare. Most of his plays were written in Iambic Pentameter. And one of the reasons for that is Iambic Pentameter tends to have this certain rhythm that is quite unique and special. And we're going to be talking about how that rhythm is made in the writing, how it affects performance and how the thing is read. And really, the thing about meter is, why I'm choosing to start this topic, is because if you can understand meter and apply it in your writing, and if you're performing and reading poetry as well, it's going to add a whole new dimension to the way you read and create poetry. So in Iambic Pentameter, you've got two words, iambic and pentameter. So iambic is going to tell us what kind of metrical foot it is. So in this case, it's an iamb. What a metrical foot is basically, it's defined by the number of syllables and whether those syllables are stressed or unstressed. So in our case with iamb, we've got two syllables here, I, am. We've got an unstressed followed by a stressed. So we'll call it D and dum. And then pentameter, that word is just going to tell us how many feet there are in the line. So as you can probably tell from the word penta, there are going to be 5 feet in the line. So a line of iambic pentameter is basically just a line that has 5 D-dums in it. D-dum, 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 D-dum. So as you can guess, that's 10 syllables. Why this rhythm is so special is because there are a lot of rhythms in nature that kind of align with this sound. For example, the heartbeat. Dee-dum, 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 dee-dum. You've also got walking pace. Dee-dum, 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 dee-dum. And why it was used so much is you have to imagine, and why verse and meter was so important, especially in Jacobean and Elizabethan times, was because the theatre was a very different place to what it is now. So now we view theatre as this kind of upper class hobby, like a leisure activity. Whereas back then, it was very different. Although it would depend where you go, I guess. But in the Globe Theatre, which is Shakespeare's theatre that was built in London, you'd have people coming, they pay like a penny, and they'd just be the plebeians, they'd just be the, the common folk. And they'd buy their oranges, and if they didn't like what was going on in the play, they'd be peeling their oranges, and they'd throw the stuff at the actors on stage, they'd be calling out, they'd be flirting with whoever, they'd be maybe having a fight with someone over here, and the actors would just kind of go through and do the play while all this craziness might be going on, and hopefully the audience would tune in. And this dee-dum, dee-dum, dee-dum rhythm would kind of help to bring the audience's ear back to the action and what's going on stage naturally, with that rhythm. You would also have nobles and other important people at the theatre. It wasn't just for the plebs, obviously. You'd have, all the plebs would be, I keep calling them plebs. Us normal people would be in the stalls. They'd be in like the pit, and then up behind them would be on seats going up in rows, and the higher up you were, the more important you were. And actually, the most important seats would be behind the stage. So the people in them wouldn't even be able to see most of the action going on. But that would be where the queen would sit, or an important lord or noble would sit, just to kind of show that they had the money and power and status to be there overseeing this play and to sit in that position. But on a side note, that's just a little fun fact for you. But let's break into an example now. Right, so this is from Richard II, Act 4, Scene 1, and it's spoken by Richard. And just to give you a bit of context for the scene, he's just been usurped by Bolingbroke, and so he's having to give up his crown now. He's been called to the throne room, all the other lords and ladies and knights and whoever's there, all the big G's, they're all there, and he's basically going to give up his crown, give up his scepter, and all this stuff. So in this scene, he's literally just handing over his crown right now, but he's making it kind of difficult. He's having to face the reality of no longer being king, although he still feels like a king, and that's all he's ever known. He was a boy king, he was a king since he was very young, and now he's having to kind of come to terms with giving all that up. So I'll just read this line for you. My care is loss of care by old care done. Your care is gain of care by new care won. The cares I give are mine though given away. They tend the crown, but still with me they stay. So hopefully you can see the didum 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 rhythm. We've got dee-dum, 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 dee-dum. So I'll just take a second here and I'll just fill out the rest of those. So I've put in blue the unstressed lines, the unstressed syllables, and red the stressed syllables. So hopefully that'll be a little bit clearer for you. But you can see how the structure's pretty well maintained throughout everything. So let me just give you a quick read, and I'm going to exaggerate the rhythm for you. My care is loss of care by old care done. Your care is gain of care by new care won. The cares I give are mine though given away. They tend the crown, but still with me they stay. Obviously there's a slight hiccup in the rhythm there. There's a bit that doesn't quite fit, as you may have noticed. I kind of glazed over it a little bit. And it's just here. There's like an extra syllable here with the It's like there would be two unstressed syllables here. Because if you were to stress the way, it wouldn't quite sound right. My care, the cares I give are mine, though give and away. It just sounds kind of eggy. It doesn't sound as good as the cares I give are mine, though given away. There's like that little given away, that little skip that goes along. And here's a good time to just bring in some of the other poetic devices and how Shakespeare in particular is read. And verse. When verse is given in monosyllables, monosyllabic words, it tends to be an indication for the reader, the actor, to slow down. So look at all these lines. You've got 3 lines here, 1, 2, and then this bottom one as well. They're all monosyllabic, so nice and slow. And in any part of the verse where you see the structure, the natural structure has been broken, like it has with here, you want to think why. So if you imagine he's saying this line, my care is loss of care by old care done. Your care is gain of care by new care won. And then if you think I'll just speed up this next line, the cares I give are mine though given away. They tend the crown, but still with me they stay. And then slow it down on the next one. It can change the meaning of the line. Obviously I played it up a bit there, I spoke a bit louder. But it tends to signal there's like a change in the psychology of the character. And in this case, I think it's because he's literally talking about giving his crown away, and it's the idea of giving it away, given away, that it's almost like an emotional trigger to him. The cares I give are mine, though given away. It's like this. It's not in keeping with the rhythm, and where there's a kind of conflict in the structure, you want to use that as like a mirror to the conflict of the psychology of the character, or the meaning of the piece. Let's have a look at some of the other devices that he uses throughout. So, what you might have noticed straight away that we haven't touched on yet is the fact it rhymes. So rhyming was often used, especially towards the end of scenes, because the end and the beginning of scenes, because it would just kind of grab audiences' attention again. You remember I said they'd be focusing on other things, and if the lines start to rhyme, people could be doing something else, and they start to pay attention, because what it's telling them, because they know, because if they see a few different ones, they know, oh, a scene's coming to the end. Because back in Jacobean and Elizabethan times, they didn't have lighting. They just have rhymes, or they just have a certain scene change, and that's how people would know a scene was coming to an end. So it kind of, when something starts to rhyme, it's like William Shakespeare was going, right, guys, you need to listen to this bit. This is the important bit. If you're gonna be able to understand what's going on in the next scene, you want to hear just the very end of this scene or the very beginning of this scene. And this isn't actually at the beginning or the end of the scene. It's like about 2/3 of the way through. So the fact he's rhyming here, it's something important he wants them to hear. And actually, I mean, it basically summarizes the whole scene. He's giving away his crown. So if the audience heard nothing else, then they'd at least get that. So we've got the rhyming. What else have we got? We've got repetition. So you may have noticed a few words being repeated. For instance, we've got the care word. Care, my care is loss of care. By old care, done. Care is again care, by new care one. Cares I give are mine, they're given away, they turn the crown, but still with me they stay. Yeah, and there's given in there as well. Cares I give, given. So why is he repeating care so much? Because he cares. It's pretty much all there is to it, really. I mean, you could all this stuff is open to interpretation. You can put whatever you want onto it. But as I've said, he's got some rhyming going on. He's got this de-dum, very strong structure going through. We've got monosyllables, so it's slowing down. It's a very important moment in the scene, and it's care. He cares so much about the crown and his being a king. And I think that's something that Shakespeare's really trying to make important to us and shove in our faces. So what else? We've got antithesis. So what is antithesis? Antithesis is black and white, up, down, big, small, fat, thin. You can think of some yourself. So we've got loss versus my care is loss of care. We've got gain. We've got old, new, done, one. We've got, what else do we have? Cares I give him money, yeah, away and stay. So, antithesis. Why is antithesis used? Well, it provides a lot of colour to things. It can make things very kind of dramatic. There's like this seesaw effect. Ba-bum, ba-bum, ba-bum. And with the rhyming as well, that is also bringing out some of that seesaw effect. Bum, ba-bum, ba-bum. We've got AA and BB. Another tool as well is we've got it's kind of inherent with the repetition of care, but we've got the C's repetition. If you've ever been speaking to somebody and they're kind of irate about something, they're kind of looping in that weird way and end up repeating things a lot. And Richard, he kind of gets like this, he gets like this, But like in the final scene of the play, when he's sitting like in his prison cell, his mind is stuck on this loop. And it's this looping over and over again on how he should be king, how it's not right, how he has to have the control, how he needs to be there for the kingdom. And that circuit's just kind of running and running. And this repetition, it's like he's kind of showing us the state of Richard's mind and that kind of obsessive repetitiveness. We've also got this S down here at the bottom. Still with me they stay. And it's right at the end of that line. And it finishes on a rhyme as well. So we've got rhyme, bit of alliteration. We've also got the antithesis. So there's a very strong ending of the line there. And it also fits the rhythm perfectly. Dee-dum, 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 dee-dum. And there's something else he does as well that he also does at the end of the play with Richard. When he's sitting there in his cell, he's talking about his thoughts and how they kind of people this world. And he does something that he does in this line as well. They tend the crown, but still with me they stay. And it's a very specific kind of metaphor. And here's a $10 word for you. Anthropomorphizing. So what that means is to make something human. If something's anthropomorphic, it's human-like, it's human-esque, it's human. So he's talking about the cares, his own cares, as if his cares are people. And he does that again towards the end of the play. He has this very kind of personal connection to everything. It's kind of funny, like, as a king, he takes things so personally, and he personalizes everything, and he anthropomorphizes things to make them human. It's kind of, it shows that kind of childishness that he still has. You know, on the one hand, he is a king, and he looks down at people like they're his servants, like his cares are his servants. They tend the crown, they tend things. So he's viewing his thoughts and emotions like they're servants and soldiers and people underneath him, but he's also taking things very, very personally and not able to detach from them and view things objectively. Alright, I'm done here. If you like this video, then go ahead and smash that like button as hard as you can. Any questions or any thoughts, let me know in the comments. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, I'm going to be diving into some more examples of how meters are used in text, the different metric feet, as well as other shenanigans and good stuff that poets and writers use. And I'll also still be posting the fiction and stories that I make up, and I'll be filming those under the light of the moon. So, until then, I hope I shall be seeing you again. Dee-dum, 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 dee-dum. I hope I shall be seeing you again. Sorry. Take care.